The kettle clicked off, that little plastic sound, steam rising against the window above the sink. 6:15 in the morning, same as every morning for the last 15 years since I retired from the county. I poured the water over the grounds and watched it darken. The house was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I had stopped noticing the quiet a long time ago. My wife Diane still slept upstairs. Or she pretended to sleep. I never knew which anymore. I carried the mug to my recliner, the one with the worn armrest where my elbow had carved a groove over 23 years of mornings. The newspaper was still on the porch in its blue plastic bag. I left it there. I just sat, the heat from the mug warming my palms, my fingers thick and knotted with age. The same hands that rebuilt the engine on my son's first car. The same hands that held each of my grandchildren the day they were born. Now they just shook a little when I lifted anything heavier than a coffee cup. The phone rang at 7. I almost didn't answer. These days, the phone brings nothing good. Bills, doctor appointments, calls from numbers you don't recognize that turn out to be someone telling you that your warranty has expired on a car you sold 10 years ago. But it was my daughter Claire, her face on the screen. That photo I took of her at her college graduation. She looked so happy that day, so full of light. "Hey, Dad," she said, her voice bright. Too bright, maybe. "We need to talk about Christmas."
Christmas was 3 weeks away. I had already bought gifts. Nothing expensive because I couldn't afford expensive anymore. A Lego set for my grandson Leo, a doll for little Emma, a gift card for my son-in-law Mark because he was impossible to shop for, and for Claire, a necklace, real silver. Not fancy, but it had a small charm shaped like a bird. She used to draw birds when she was a child, all over my old work papers. I kept one of those drawings in my nightstand drawer. "What about Christmas, baby?" I asked. "Well," she said, and then she paused. That pause, the one where you know something is coming, but you let it come anyway because stopping it feels worse than hearing it. "Mark and I have been talking, and we think maybe this year we should do something different." "Different how?" "We want to host this year, at our house. We think it might be easier for everyone." Easier? That word. I turned it over in my head like a stone. Easier for who? "And Dad," she said, "we were thinking maybe you could come in the afternoon instead of the morning, just for a few hours, because the kids get overwhelmed and we want to keep it low-key." Low-key. I set my coffee down. The mug clinked against the wooden side table. That sound was louder than I expected. I looked at the Christmas tree in the corner of the living room. I had put it up alone the day after Thanksgiving, dragged a plastic bin up from the basement, unpacked each ornament one by one.
The ones the kids made in elementary school with popsicle sticks and glitter. The ceramic angel Diane painted at that hobby store 25 years ago. The little wooden soldier that used to hang on my parents' tree when I was a boy. I had spent an afternoon untangling the lights. My fingers don't work the way they used to. The little wires are harder to hold. I sat on the floor for almost 2 hours getting those lights straight. And then I hung them on the tree and stepped back to see if they looked okay. They did. They looked fine. But the house was still empty. The tree doesn't fix empty. "Claire," I said, "what are you really telling me?" Another pause. I heard Mark's voice in the background, muffled, like he had his hand over the phone. Then Claire came back on. "Dad, we just think it's a lot, you know? The whole day, the driving. We want to make sure you don't overdo it." "I am 68 years old," I said. "I am not dying." "I didn't say you were dying," she said fast, too fast. "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. My daughter calling me dramatic. The same daughter who cried for 3 hours when her hamster died when she was 9. The same daughter who screamed at me for not letting her borrow the car when she was 17. I held her hand when she gave birth to Leo. I was in that delivery room. I watched her sweat and bleed and cry, and now she was telling me not to be dramatic? "Okay," I said. "Afternoon is fine. A few hours is fine." "Great," she said. And her voice lifted back to that bright place. Fake bright. The kind of bright you put on when you want something, but you don't want to say what it is. We'll see you around one. And Dad, don't worry about bringing anything. We have everything covered. I sat in my recliner for a long time after she hung up. The coffee went cold. The sun climbed higher and cut across the living room floor, dust floating in the light. My legs started to ache. The old injury from the construction site back in '97. Some days it's fine. Some days it feels like someone is driving a nail into the bone. This was a nail day. Diane came downstairs around 8:30. Her hair was wet from the shower. She wore that blue robe I bought her for our 25th anniversary. It was faded now, the belt frayed at the edges. She walked past me into the kitchen without saying good morning. That was normal now. The silence between us had grown over the last few years. Not angry silence, just absent silence. Like we had become furniture in each other's lives. You walk past a chair every day and you don't say good morning to the chair. She poured herself a cup of coffee, leaned against the counter, looked out the window at the backyard. The fence needed painting. The grass was brown because we hadn't turned on the sprinkler since September. Claire called, I said. Oh, she said. What did she want? Christmas. She wants us to come in the afternoon instead of the morning, just for a few hours. Diane nodded.
That made sense, she said. The kids get tired. I watched her face, looking for something. A crack, a tell, some sign that she knew more than she was saying. But her face was just her face. Tired, a little sad. The same face she had worn for the last 42 years, except now it had lines around the mouth and creases at the corners of the eyes. Still beautiful to me, even after everything, even after the cold silences and the separate bedrooms, and the way she stopped reaching for my hand somewhere around year 35. I asked her if something was wrong. She said no, just tired. She didn't sleep well. That was her answer for everything now. Didn't sleep well. I stopped asking follow-up questions a long time ago. The week before Christmas, my son Jason called. Jason lives 3 hours north, near the state line. He has a wife named Megan and 2 boys. Connor is 9, Owen is 7. I don't see them as much as I want. Jason says it's the distance. I say 3 hours is nothing. I drove that far for a job site every day for 20 years. But Jason has his own life. I understand that. Or I tell myself I understand that. Hey, old man, he said. That's what he calls me. Old man. Used to be funny. Now it just sounds like the truth. Hey yourself, I said. You coming down for Christmas? That's actually what I wanted to talk about. Megan's parents are coming to our place this year. They're getting older, and her dad isn't doing great. So we're going to stay here. But we'll drive down the weekend after. We can do our own Christmas then. I closed my eyes. The weekend after. January 3rd? The tree would still be up probably. I always leave it up until Epiphany. Diane thinks that's old-fashioned, but I like the lights in the dark mornings. But January 3rd isn't Christmas. Sat on the living room floor with the roll of paper and the tape and the little sticky labels. Leo's Lego set was bigger than I remembered. I had to cut extra paper to cover it.
My hand struggled with the tape. I ended up using too much. It looked like a child had wrapped it. But Leo is 7. He won't care about the wrapping. He'll care about the toy. At least that's what I told myself. I put the gifts in the back seat of my truck. The truck is a 2014 Ford, 220,000 miles. The heater makes a clicking sound when I turn it on, but the heat still works. The seat is worn down on the driver's side. You can see the foam. I keep a blanket over it. Feels less like I'm falling apart that way. The drive to Claire's house took 30 minutes. Traffic was light. Christmas morning, everyone is home opening gifts or making breakfast or being happy. I drove past houses with wreaths on the doors, inflatables on the lawns, a giant snowman, a Santa with a blown-out leg that made him look injured. I used to have inflatables, a reindeer, a nativity scene. Diane put them out every year. Now they sit in the basement. The box is marked Christmas outside in black marker. I see it every time I go down there to get the laundry. Claire's house is in a development called Oak Meadows. Every house looks the same. Beige siding, 2-car garage, a little porch with a bench that nobody sits on. She and Mark bought it 5 years ago. I helped with the down payment, $20,000.
Not a loan, a gift. I told them it was early inheritance. Mark shook my hand and said thank you, and Claire cried and hugged me and said I was the best dad in the world. I parked in the driveway behind Mark's BMW, a new one. I don't know what year, but it's new. The tires are black and shiny, no dirt, no salt. He must have washed it the night before. Mark cares about his car. He cares about a lot of things. His golf clubs, his watch, his beard trimmer. He cares about his beard trimmer more than he ever cared about asking me how my back was doing. I walked to the front door carrying the gifts. The Lego set was heavy. My arms started to ache. I knocked because the doorbell has a camera, and I don't like being watched. Claire opened the door. She smiled. That smile was real, I think. Or I wanted to believe it was real. "Dad, come in," she said. She took the Lego set from my arms and set it inside the door. "You didn't have to bring all this. They're Christmas gifts," I said. "That's what you do." Mark appeared from the kitchen. He had an apron on. It said, "Kiss the cook." He was grilling something. It's December. Who grills in December? But Mark grills. Mark grills in rain and snow, and probably if there was a hurricane, he would stand outside with his tongs and a beer. "Hey, Bill," he said. "Good to see you." He didn't shake my hand. He never shakes my hand anymore. He just nods and walks away. I stood in the entryway holding the other 2 gifts. Claire took those 2. She put them under the tree. Their tree was huge, like 10 feet tall, flocked with fake snow, white lights, matching ornaments, everything coordinated. Nothing handmade, no popsicle sticks, no glitter, just catalog perfect. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "Leo is playing video games upstairs," Claire said. "Emma is napping. She'll be down soon." I stood in the living room. The furniture was new, gray fabric, a big sectional that looked like it had never been sat on, a rug that probably cost more than my first car, a TV the size of a sheet of plywood. I sat on the edge of the sectional. It was too soft. I felt like I was sinking. Claire brought me a glass of water. Not coffee, not tea, just water. She knows I don't drink alcohol, haven't touched it since '95. One night too many, and I decided I was done. Claire knows this. She brought me water anyway. I drank it because my mouth was dry and my hands needed something to hold. Mark came back in from the grill with a platter of steaks. They smelled good. I hadn't eaten anything all day. The coffee from 6 in the morning had worn off hours ago. My stomach growled, but I didn't say anything. I just watched Mark set the platter on the dining room table. The table was set for 5. 5 plates, 5 napkins, 5 glasses. I counted them twice. "Claire," I said, "are we expecting someone else?" She looked at Mark. That look, the one that says something has been decided and you haven't been told yet. Mark shrugged like it wasn't his problem. Claire tucked her hair behind her ear. That was her tell. She had done that since she was a little girl. Whenever she lied about eating the last cookie or breaking a lamp or sneaking out past curfew, she tucked her hair behind her ear. "Megan and the boys are coming," she said. "Jason couldn't make it, but Megan wanted to bring the kids down, for the cousins to see each other." "I thought Jason said they were staying home," I said. "He changed his mind," Claire said. Fast. Too fast. They wanted to see us. So he set 2 more places. 2 more places. But there were 5. Megan and Connor and Owen are 3 people. 2 more places would make 7, not 5. I don't do math well anymore, but I can count to 7.
Who else is coming? I asked. Claire's face did something strange. It crumpled, then smoothed out, like she was trying to hold something back, but it was pushing against her skin. Mark walked out of the room. He just walked away, left her standing there, alone. I watched him go into the kitchen and pour himself a glass of something brown. Bourbon, probably. Mark drinks bourbon the way other people drink water. Dad, Claire said. She sat down next to me on the sectional. The cushion sank. Her weight was small, but the couch was soft. She put her hand on my knee. That was the first time she had touched me in months. Maybe longer. Months. Her hand was warm. Small. The same hand I held when she learned to ride a bike. The same hand that drew birds on my work papers. Dad, she said again. There's something I need to tell you. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. Her eyes were wet. She wasn't crying yet, but the water was there. Waiting. Her lip trembled. That little tremble she had as a teenager when she got caught and knew she couldn't talk her way out of it. I'm not your daughter, she said. The room went cold. Not cold like temperature, cold like the blood in my veins stopped moving, like my heart forgot how to beat. I stared at her face, her nose, her eyes, the shape of her chin. That was my chin. That was my mother's chin. That was my grandmother's chin. This girl had my family's chin. What did you say? I asked. She pulled her hand back, put it in her lap, looked down at the rug, the expensive rug that probably came from some catalog with a name I couldn't pronounce. I did a DNA test last year, she said, for fun, one of those ancestry things, and the results came back, and the man listed as my father. It wasn't you. The water glass slipped from my hand. It hit the rug and bounced and rolled under the couch. The water soaked into the expensive fabric, dark spots spreading. Claire didn't move to clean it up. Neither did I. How? I said. That's all I could say. How? She started crying then, soft at first, then harder, her shoulders shaking. She told me that Diane had an affair, 36 years ago. A coworker, a man named Paul from the accounting firm where she worked before I got my county job. The affair lasted almost a year. Diane got pregnant.
She didn't know if the baby was mine or his, so she kept the secret. She kept it for 36 years. She kept it through every birthday party, every school play, every father-daughter dance, every time I tucked Claire into bed and read her a story and kissed her forehead and told her I loved her more than anything in the world. The whole time she knew. The whole time there was a chance that this little girl with my chin and my mother's eyes was not my little girl at all. I stood up. My legs didn't want to hold me. The old injury in my knee screamed. I grabbed the back of the couch to steady myself. Mark was standing in the kitchen doorway, watching. His face was blank, like he was watching a TV show he didn't care about. He took a sip of his bourbon. "Where is Diane?" I asked. "She's coming with Megan," Claire said. "They're on their way. We thought it would be better if we all told you together." All told me together? Like an intervention. Like a family meeting about a problem. Only the problem was me. I was the problem. The man who didn't know his own life. The man who had been living a lie for 36 years. The man who paid for braces and college and a wedding and a down payment on a house for a child who was not his child. I walked to the front door. My boots felt heavy, like they were filled with cement. I put my hand on the doorknob. Claire was behind me, crying, saying, "Dad, please. Dad, please don't go. Dad, please let us explain." "Explain what?" I said. I didn't turn around. I couldn't look at her face. That face that I had loved for 36 years. That face that I had watched grow from a tiny wrinkled newborn to a beautiful woman. That face that had my chin and my mother's eyes, and none of my DNA. "Explain how you all sat around and planned this," I said. Explain how you decided Christmas Day was the right time to tell me that my life was a lie. Explain how you thought a glass of water and a steak and a couch that cost more than my truck would make any of this okay. Mark spoke from the kitchen. He said, "Bill, you need to calm down." I turned around then. I looked at that man with his beard trimmer and his BMW and his bourbon and his apron that said "Kiss the Cook." That man who had married my daughter, who had called me Bill for 5 years instead of Dad, who had never once asked me for advice about anything, who looked at me like I was a piece of furniture that had been in the house too long. "Don't tell me to calm down," I said. My voice was quiet, quieter than I expected. "You don't get to tell me to calm down in a house I helped pay for, in a life that I just found out was built on a lie." Claire grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Dad, please, you're still my dad. You raised me. That counts for something." I looked at her hand on my arm. Then I looked at her face, tears running down her cheeks. That chin, that damn chin that I thought was mine. I pulled my arm away, gently. She wasn't the one I was angry at. She was just the one who got caught in the middle of a mess she didn't make. But she was also the one who kept the secret for a year. A whole year she knew. She sat across from me at Thanksgiving and she knew. She watched me carve the turkey and she knew. She hugged me goodbye and she knew. The front door opened. Diane walked in, followed by Megan, followed by Connor and Owen. The boys ran past me into the living room. They didn't say hi. They didn't even look at me. They just ran to the tree and started shaking the gifts. Megan stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. She looked at me like I was something she stepped in. Diane looked at me. Her face was pale. She knew I knew. Claire must have called her. Or maybe they had a schedule. A timeline. Step 1, tell Bill. Step 2, wait for him to react. Step 3, comfort him or manage him or whatever they had planned. "Bill?" she said. "Don't," I said. "Bill, please." I said, "Don't." I walked past her, past Megan, past the BMW in the driveway, past the house with the beige siding and the porch bench that nobody sits on. I got in my truck. The seat was cold. The blanket I keep over the foam was bunched up on the floor. I left it there. I started the engine. The heater clicked, but the air was still cold. I sat there for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, my hands on the steering wheel, the leather worn smooth, my father's wedding ring on my left hand. I never took it off, even after he died, even after the marriage turned cold. I never took it off. Claire came running out of the house, no coat, just a sweater. The wind was blowing. Her hair was a mess. She knocked on the window. "Dad? Dad, please roll down the window." I didn't. "Dad, please." I put the truck in reverse. She stepped back, her face in my rearview mirror, crying, mouth open, saying something I couldn't hear over the engine and the clicking heater and the sound of my own blood in my ears. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. Past the houses with the inflatables, past the shopping center that was closed, past the church where I used to take the kids for Easter Mass. I ended up at the cemetery. My parents are buried there. I parked the truck and walked to their headstones. The grass was brown and crunchy. The cold bit through my coat. I stood there for a long time, looking at their names, the dates. My mother died at 63. My father at 71. They never knew. They died thinking Claire was their granddaughter. They died thinking the bloodline was clean. I sank down onto the ground. The cold soaked through my pants. I didn't care. I put my head in my hands. And I cried. Not quiet tears. Not dignified old man tears. I cried like a child. Great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep. Somewhere I didn't know existed. My whole body shook. My chest ached. My throat closed up. I cried until there was nothing left.
Just empty, just hollow. I drove home after dark. The house was empty. Diane wasn't back.
Or she came back and left again. I didn't know. I didn't care. I walked past the Christmas tree. The lights were still on. The little wooden soldier. The ceramic angel. The popsicle stick ornaments. I looked at them and felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just nothing. Like looking at a photograph of someone else's life. I went to the basement. I found the box marked Christmas. I opened it. The inflatable reindeer was on top. I pulled it out. The plastic was cracked. Old. I carried it upstairs and put it by the front door. Then I went back down and got the nativity scene. The box was heavy. I dragged it up the stairs. The corners caught on the steps. I didn't care. I took down the tree first. Ornament by ornament. The popsicle stick frames. The salt dough handprints. The little ceramic bird. Claire painted in second grade. I put them all in a garbage bag. Not gently. I just dropped them in. Some of them broke. I heard the pieces shift and clink against each other. I didn't stop. The lights came down next. I just pulled them. The wire scratched the walls. The little plastic needles from the fake tree. Scattered across the floor. I didn't care. I pulled until the tree was bare. Then I dragged the tree out of the stand. The trunk scraped against the floor. I took it outside and laid it on the lawn. Diane's car pulled into the driveway while I was bringing out the second garbage bag of ornaments.
She got out. She stood there in the dark. The porch light was off. I could barely see her face. "What are you doing?" she asked. "What does it look like?" I said. "Bill, it's Christmas." "No," I said, "it's not. Christmas is over. Everything is over." I walked back inside. She followed me. I went to the kitchen and opened the drawer where we kept the important papers. The deed to the house, the insurance policies, the will. I took them all out. I spread them on the kitchen table. The light above the table was yellow and flickering. One of the bulbs was dying. It had been dying for months. I never changed it because I couldn't reach it, and Diane never asked me to. "I am calling a lawyer tomorrow," I said. Diane sat down at the table. She looked small, older than she had that morning, the lines on her face deeper, her hands folded in front of her. She looked like a woman who had been carrying a secret for 36 years and was relieved to finally put it down, even if putting it down meant destroying everything. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're sorry?" I said. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just said the words like I was reading them from a page. "You're sorry? 36 years? You let me raise another man's child? You let me pay for her food and her clothes and her college and her wedding. You let me sit in a delivery room and hold her hand while she gave birth to a baby that isn't even blood related to me. And you're sorry? I didn't know for sure," she said. Her voice was quiet, shaky. "I didn't know if she was yours or his." I thought maybe if I pretended long enough, it would become true. That she would become yours, because you loved her so much. You were such a good father. I didn't want to take that away from you. "Take it away," I said. I laughed, a dry, hollow laugh that hurt my throat. "You didn't take it away. You gave me something that wasn't mine and let me love it, and then you took it away. That's worse. That's so much worse." She started crying. Real tears, not the performance I had seen from Claire. Diane was not a crier. She cried at her mother's funeral and at our daughter's wedding, and maybe 3 other times in 42 years. But she was crying now. Big, ugly tears that made her nose run and her face red. I wanted to comfort her. That was the sick part. Even after everything, even after she ripped my entire life open and let it bleed out on the kitchen table, a part of me still wanted to put my arm around her and tell her it was okay, because that's what I did. That was my job. Fix things, make it better, keep the family together. But there was no family. There was just a man and a woman, and a secret that had been festering for 3.5 decades. I took the papers and went upstairs. I packed a bag, clothes, toiletries, my father's watch, the drawing Claire made when she was 6, the bird. I had kept it in my nightstand drawer for 30 years. I looked at it now, a child's drawing, crayon on construction paper, a blue bird with a yellow beak and legs too long. Claire had written Daddy underneath in wobbly letters. I folded it carefully and put it in my bag. Diane stood at the bottom of the stairs.
watching me. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. I walked past her, past the garbage bags of ornaments, past the empty spot where the tree used to be, past the inflatable reindeer slumped against the door. I loaded my bag into the truck. The cold air hit my face. The sky was clear, stars everywhere, billions of them, each one 1,000,000 years old, each one watching me walk away from the only life I had ever known. I drove to a motel, the kind with a flickering vacancy sign and a front desk clerk who doesn't ask questions. I paid for a week. The room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The bed had a floral bedspread that looked like it was from 1987. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. The next morning I called a lawyer, a man named Richard Cross who had handled the closing on my house 30 years ago. He was old, older than me. His voice crackled on the phone, but he remembered me. He said, "Come in on Monday." I spent Christmas weekend in that motel room. I watched TV with the sound off. I ate vending machine sandwiches and drank coffee from the lobby. My phone rang 47 times. I didn't answer. Claire left messages. Jason left messages. Diane left messages. Megan left a message telling me I was being selfish. Mark left a message telling me to think about the kids. The kids. Connor and Owen and Leo and Emma. My grandchildren. Or not my grandchildren. I didn't know anymore. The DNA didn't just stop with Claire. It went through her, into them. Half of them carried that man's blood. Paul, from accounting. A man I had never met. A man who probably didn't even know he had a daughter. Monday came. I went to Richard's office. It was in an old building downtown. The carpet was brown. The chairs were wooden and hard. Richard sat behind a massive desk. His hands were spotted with age. His eyes were clear. He listened to everything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look shocked. He had probably heard worse. Family law does that to a person. You see the worst of people, the lies, the money, the children used as weapons. He asked me what I wanted. I didn't know how to answer. What do you want when everything you thought was true turns out to be a lie? You can't get those years back. You can't unsing the lullabies, or untuck the bedsheets, or take back the words "I love you." The love was real, even if the blood wasn't. The love was real, but that didn't stop the pain. That didn't stop the feeling of being erased. I want the house, I said. I want half of everything, and I want her to know that she doesn't get to keep the life I built while I sleep in a motel room that smells like bleach. Richard nodded. He said it would take time. He said divorce at our age is complicated. He said the assets would be divided.
He said the DNA test would matter, but not as much as I thought, because I had raised Claire, and the law considered me her father regardless of biology. Regardless of biology. Those words, they were supposed to be comforting. They felt like a knife. I went back to the motel. I stayed there for 2 weeks. Then I found an apartment, a one-bedroom on the second floor of a building that used to be a factory. The walls were brick, the windows were tall. The heat came from radiators that clanked and hissed all night. I bought a bed from a second-hand store, a couch that smelled like someone else's dog, a table and 2 chairs. I hung my father's watch on the wall above the table. The drawing of the bird went on the refrigerator. Diane's lawyer called my lawyer. They talked. Numbers were exchanged. Offers were made. Diane wanted to keep the house. I said fine, she could have the house. But I wanted the truck and the money from the sale of the cabin up north. The cabin we bought together in 2005, the place where we spent summers with the kids, where Claire learned to fish, where Jason caught his first frog, where Diane and I used to sit on the porch and watch the sunset and talk about nothing. She could have the house. I wanted the cabin. I wanted to burn it to the ground, but I settled for taking it. The divorce was final in April, 6 months after Christmas. 6 months of phone calls and emails and meetings and paperwork. 6 months of sleeping alone and eating alone and waking up in the dark and not remembering where I was. 6 months of my children not calling, not visiting, not asking how I was.
Claire sent me a letter, handwritten. She said she was sorry. She said she still loved me. She said she wanted me to be in her children's lives. She said family wasn't about blood. She signed it, "Love, your daughter." I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't answer it. Jason called once. He said he didn't know what to say. He said he was angry at Mom too, but she was still his mother, and Claire was still his sister. And Megan thought I should just move on and stop being bitter. He said those words, "Stop being bitter," as if finding out your entire marriage was a lie and your oldest child wasn't yours was something you just got over, like a cold, like a bad game of golf. I told Jason I loved him. He said he loved me too. Then we hung up and didn't talk again for 3 months. It's November now, almost a year since that Christmas morning. I am sitting in my apartment. The radiators are hissing. The windows are fogged with cold. The bird drawing is still on the refrigerator. My father's watch is still on the wall. I have a small tree this year, a tabletop thing I bought at the drugstore. It has lights that run on batteries. I put it on the table next to my chair. It looks sad, but it's something. Diane sold the house. She moved to a condo near her sister. I heard she is seeing someone.
A widower from her church. That's fine. She can see whoever she wants. She stopped being my wife long before I knew the truth. The truth just gave me permission to stop pretending. Claire sends me pictures of the kids. Leo lost his front tooth. Emma started preschool. They look happy. They look like they don't miss me. Maybe they don't. Maybe I was always just the old man who showed up on holidays with gifts. Maybe I was always just Bill. Not Grandpa. Just Bill. My phone rings sometimes. I don't answer as much as I used to. The silence is easier. The silence doesn't lie. The silence doesn't have a secret it's been keeping for 36 years. The silence just sits there with me, in this apartment, with the clanking radiators and the fogged windows, and the little tree that looks sad on the table. I still have the drawing, the bird with the long legs, Daddy written underneath. I look at it sometimes, in the morning when I make my coffee. I stand there in my kitchen with the mug in my hands and I look at that piece of construction paper that has yellowed and curled at the edges. And I remember a little girl with pigtails sitting at the kitchen table, crayons scattered everywhere, her tongue sticking out the side of her mouth because she was concentrating so hard. She held up the drawing and said, "Daddy, look what I made." And I said, "I see it, baby. I see it. It's beautiful." It was beautiful. It still is. But beautiful doesn't mean true. And true doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
The kettle clicks off. The steam rises. I pour the water over the grounds and watch it darken. The same thing I did that morning. The same thing I will do tomorrow morning. And the morning after that. Until I don't wake up anymore. The phone rings. I don't look at the screen. I just let it ring. The sound bounces off the brick walls. It echoes in the empty spaces where furniture should be, where people should be, where a life should be. It stops ringing, and the silence comes back. It always comes back.